Welcome to the spring edition of our Vibration of Mind Talks. Normally, this is something that we do in the fall around Martin Gardner's birthday in October, but normally we should be having the actual physical gathering for the conference right now. And of course, instead, we're having a week of Celebration of Mind Talks and a bunch of wonderful speakers here. Excited to have this ability to share this with everybody. And very pleased to have as our chair to introduce.
Hello, I'm Mark Setteducati, and I'm going to give a little talk today on inventing. I've been in the toy business for many years, and as an inventor, I invent ideas, magic games, puzzles. And the way I got into the toy business, I took a freelance job designing a hexaflexagon, which I didn't know at the time Martin Gardner wrote extensively about. So an entrepreneur had put up a ad on the bulletin board, and I took a freelance job to make this. This is one of the actual ones I made back then. I made it into a maze where you put your finger and you have to find your way around to the end of the hexaflexagon. And I didn't know about Martin Gardner at the time, but the thing about the project, I'll start sharing my screen, was that I didn't know about collecting royalties. And the way it works in the toy industry is you license ideas and you get royalties for your ideas. And that was going to be the payment for this. Little did I know it would take me more than 6 years before I was able to license my first game and do that. And my first game that I sold was a game called Exit. And this is the actual game that came out back in 1981. And on the right, the game actually was reintroduced in a different style, actually about 2 years ago by a company named Spin Master, and it's still on the shelf today, but in a slightly different form, in a new and improved version. In 1981, this was the TV commercial. Let's see.
Attention, please. There are 100 exits on this aircraft.
100 exits?
Where?
Right here.
Oh, the game of exit.
Exit, the strategy game with a tilt. To win, exit all your chips or just the black one. Use the chips you exit for strategic blocks.
Nice block, Dad. A 3. 1, 2, 3, exit. Nice try, Dad, but my strategy was better.
Exit, the strategy game with a tilt from Milton Bradley.
I went on to do, at the same time, I did Rubik's Cube was just becoming really, really popular. And I was the first one to do a game on Rubik's Cube. And it was actually a game where you played tic-tac-toe on the cube. On the left, you see the prototype that I actually made at the time. I took a real Rubik's Cube and I drilled holes in it. And you play with pegs, and it was called Rubik's Game. And in Europe, it was called Rubik's Challenge. And when that happened, I thought I was going to be really rich, because the cube was one of the biggest things that ever hit the toy industry. And as soon as my game came out, the cube kind of died. It died very quickly. But in any case, my path continued in the toy industry, and I developed a lot of magic sets. Because ever since I was a little kid, I've been a magician and interested in magic. So magic games and puzzles. And Magic Works was the biggest line that I did back in the 1990s. And I'll show, this was one of the more original ones. Probably the best trick I ever invented. It's called Electronic Talking Magic Works. We'll play the commercial for this.
Check it out, Hawk. New electronic talking magic works like Spirit in the Coffin.
I'll predict your card before you even choose it. Impossible. Watch, I made my prediction and sealed it. Pick a card. I picked the eye.
My master knew the eye.
Unreal. Just wait till you see Guardian of the Grave and Secret of the Sphinx. Cool.
Electronic talking magic works. Spirit in the Coffin. Guardian of the Grave. Secret of the Sphinx.
We know the secrets and we'll talk.
Electronic talking magic works from Milton Bradley.
And around the same time, I did a magic set called Mr. Creepy's Magic Set, which are actually the difference between the Magic Works tricks, where they were inventions, where with Mr. Creepy, I took standard tricks and restyled them and made them, give them a different look. But I didn't really invent any new tricks, I just styled them. And that's one of the things I want to talk about, the difference between invention and styling. Invention is something, styling is where you take something that exists. For example, this is one of the tricks. And on the top left, you can see a card box. That's a standard prop that has been around for 100 years with magicians. It's in a lot of kids' magic sets. And what happens is when you close the box, the card either disappears or changes to a different card because there's a flap inside, and it's a very simple trick. Well, what I did with the Mr. Creepy set, and this is what I want to talk about styling, anybody could take anything, whether it's a game, a trick, a puzzle, and style it differently, just give it a different look. So the teeth here are exactly a card box. I didn't do any new inventing. I just took the exact same principle, the exact same trick, and made it with a different theme and a story. I gave it a story. So here's my little demo. Here's my little friend Jaws, and he's hungry, and here's his food. Here's a little plate with the food, and you got the worms, the heart, and the peas. Okay, we'll put it in there, and he'll chomp up the food. He's eating, he's hungry, you see. Oh, I think he's had enough. He's eaten everything now. Let's see how he did. Oh, well, oh, he ate everything, but I guess he doesn't like his peas. So that's exactly the same trick as the card box, but just styled with the story. And there are two ways that you can actually invent. One way is to start with a theme, and the other way is start with a principle. So for example, if you wanted to make a game, you can either start with saying that you want to make a game about the stock market or want to make a game about Martin Gardner. The other way is to explore a principle, is what is my preferred way. Like, so for example, I would start with maybe one of Martin Gardner's principles, a math principle, or start with mirrors. In my case, back when I was a student at the School of Visual Arts, I did a business card and it had a mirror in it, and everybody really liked it, and I was surprised. So I kept actually exploring the idea of using mirrors in inventions and puzzles and games. And this was the first puzzle that I did using a mirror, and this was called Optical Conclusions. Mirror vision puzzles are puzzles that have 4 smaller cubes that, when placed on top of a mirror, give you the illusion of one large cube. The object of this one is to place the cubes so that all of the numbers not only read correctly, but each side must add up to 11. In this case, 8 plus 3, 10 plus 1, 9 plus 2. It's possible to put it together so that the sides don't add up to 11, but as you can see here, that's not obviously the solution. In this one, we have to make the cubes look like a die, and on this one, you have to reverse the color of the arrows to get orange arrows on a blue background. Okay, and this was a game I did in the 1980s using a mirror, and I was really interested in mirrors, and I was interested in trying to figure out how can you make something appear differently in the mirror, and that's what this game was. Rubiks Illusion is a game that's played half in the mirror and half in reality. So every time you put down one piece, you're actually putting 2 pieces down. So for example, here is a yellow. If I put it down, I'm putting 2 pieces down. The object of the game is to get 5 in a row of your color. So for example, here this is 4 in a row. This is 2 yellow in a row. This is 4 in a row. That's not good. That's 6 in a row. You need 5 in a row to win. So here we'll put 5 in a row. Oh look, here's 5 in a row, yellow. That's a win. It's a 2-player strategy game, played yellow against red, and in this case, yellow just won because there's 5 yellow in a row. Now, when you start working with a new principle like mirrors, you come up with all the obvious things. There could be any principle when you start, but when you work for years, like probably for more than 10 years, even longer, I played around and tried to think of every different thing I could do with the mirror. It seems obvious that like I would have taken that idea and put a picture on it, but it didn't come until many years later, maybe 10 or 15 years later, that I realized that you could put an image and make that appear differently. And that's what I did with the, this puzzle, which is called the Harry Potter Mirror Vision puzzle, which was sold in several different forms. But the point is that sometimes ideas take more than 10 or 20 years. The incubation time is something that I'm really aware of as an inventor. When you start out inventing, you just think that ideas come from nowhere, but they come from exploring principles or your life experience over a long time. So this is the Mirror Vision Harry Potter puzzle. The Harry Potter Mirror Vision puzzle. Here is a character, Snape, from the Harry Potter movie. And this is a 9-piece puzzle. There's pieces here, but you can see that his face is reflected in the mirror, but is not down here where I put my finger. If I put my finger here on the bottom of his body, you see that my finger is on his face in the reflection. So the picture reflects differently in the mirror. And the object of the puzzle is to take the pieces out and try to get them back in the correct piece. And it's a 9-piece puzzle, and it's a little tricky. It's doubly tricky because of the mirror. And there are actually 2 puzzles on the other side. There's another puzzle with another Harry Potter character. And that's the Harry Potter mirror vision puzzle. And here is the other side of the puzzle, the picture of Dumbledore from the Harry Potter movie. Okay. Here is a game I did back in the 1980s, and this was called Out of Sight. Here's the commercial.
Reflection. Deception. Play out of sight. Go for the bluff, cause out of sight's got all the right stuff. Reflection. Deception. It's done with mirrors, X's and O's. Play out of sight. Get 4 in a row. Reflection. Deception. You may guess right, or you may not. Cause what you see's not always what you got.
I got it. Out of sight.
What you see's not always what you got.
Very dated commercial, kind of corny, but that's what they did back then. I did a word game with mirrors. Here's a bank, but my Dracula bank that Tenyo did, we'll play it. Then I did a toy, a drawing toy. I went really crazy. I really got into mirrors, trying to figure out as many different things I could do with mirrors. This toy you draw actually right inside the mirror, and it's like drawing inside a kaleidoscope, reflecto. You can also put labels and objects in it, and that was my mirror phase. Now I want to talk about another thing, is a self-imposed. As an inventor, one of the good things to do is have a different problem or self-imposed challenges. Now, the way I work, I have to come up with my own ideas. I come up on speculation. Sometimes companies come to me and they'll ask me, or I'll be given a problem, but it's good to have a problem every year. And the one thing that I did, I started doing this back in 1975 or 76. I did a Christmas card every year. And I didn't realize at the time, the same thing when I started with the mirrors, I didn't know at the time, it's only later looking back, that I was exploring different principles and the difference between styling and invention and all that stuff. Only looking back, you can analyze it and see what you did and the things that I did by accident that happened to be very valuable for me. So at the time, back in 1976, a friend of mine, Pete Jacobson, he sent me a Christmas card, and he went to Parsons School of Design, and he was an artist, and so it was a handmade card. Now back then, now nobody sends handmade cards. Everybody is doing email cards, but back then, a lot of people would hand make a card or just send cards, birthday, Christmas cards, and then I just responded. And I did that, and then I sent it out to a few friends. So I actually decided, I kept doing it for a long time. And it's been now 45 years that every year I make a card. And what I didn't realize is that was like my basic research. I didn't realize that subconsciously, a lot of these cards I was working out. For example, this one here, back in 1986, I did this Christmas card. Where you play tic-tac-toe with Santa, and you put the card in either A, B, or C, and then you either win, lose, or tie. And I made it so that most people are going to put it in C, and I wanted Santa to win. So it was like a little trick. But anyway, the important part of this is that same year I did this game, Travel Wheel of Fortune, for Pressman. And I didn't realize I was using, subconsciously, I guess it was on my mind. This wasn't until later in the year that I worked on the Travel Wheel of Fortune, and the solution that I had was almost exactly what the card was, but I didn't make the connection. But because I was thinking about this and I worked on it, this stuff all comes, inventing is all done subconsciously. So the art, or the thing about making a TV game show is that you have to try to make as few parts as possible so that you can manufacture it, but yet keep the integrity of the game. So this flap that I made as direct result of a Christmas card. And then later, the other thing about having that self-imposed problem is about doing that card every year, it really forces you to push yourself. Like and it's also important not just to do a card, but actually, let me go back for a minute here. Actually, you want to make it. I actually make it, and I make a lot of them. I actually come up with the idea, go to the printer, print them up, and assemble them. I could hire somebody to do it, but that's not good. It's not going to be it when you actually commit yourself to really doing that big job, because it takes like a week for me to do it. You really push yourself, because many times I've actually started on an idea and I realized after I even started making a few that I really didn't like it. I wanted something better. I wasn't happy about it, because when you make that commitment, now people think that I do the cards for them, but I don't. I do it for me, because it really forces me to really think about, and think about my inventing process. And this serves also as a diary of what I've done. I can see when I look back at all these different cards, what was on my mind at that time, how my skills on Photoshop improved, and a lot of different things you can tell after a long period of time. So it's good to have something that you do every year, whatever it is. So that's now another way the cards came out is in the book. Now, I didn't know that when I started doing cards, I would do this magic show book, which was a book that performed magic. And here is the card that I did in 1993, which the balls change color. And I didn't know that that would end up in 1999 on the cover of the book, or that on the right, I did this candy dial. But again, like when you do that, that's your basic research. That's what it was. And I didn't know that. Again, looking back, you can see these kind of things. Now, another thing that I have done, I taught a class on design at the School of Visual Arts in New York in the 1980s. And one of the things that I did was I started to collect pens. I didn't start to collect pens. What I did is I was in a store and I saw a few different novelty pens. Here's my pen collection. And there's a picture of me covered in the pens on the left. You may not recognize me because I have different glasses now, but anyway. I needed a way to show how you could take a simple object. I saw a couple of pens, they might have been 4 or 5 different novelty pens in a gift store. And I thought, this is a good way to show how you could take a simple idea like a pen and come up with the different solutions to the same problem. You could design it this way or another way. So there's a heart pen. And these are all different heart pens. I have probably, there might be 50 or 100 pens. I probably have 10,000, maybe even more pens. I like pens with an idea. And what happens is that you really learn how to invent, so this represents different solutions to the same problem. When I was a student at the School of Visual Arts, I would get and when you're in art school, you get a different problem doing design, like it might be designing a record album cover, and you have 20 different students in the class, and you come back, and the way you learn is not by doing your thing, but by looking to see what everybody else does. You see that, there are 2 kinds of ideas that you may have thought of if you were given the same problem, and then there's those ideas that you would have never come up with, no matter how long you would have approached the problem. Here is a heart pen, and this is one example of one that I wouldn't have never thought of myself, because actually you don't see the heart, but the heart is actually on this side here, like this. That's one pen. Now here's something that if I would have said, come up with an idea for a pen, and somebody said, design a pen that looks like a screw, I would have said, well, that's an obvious idea. That's not that clever, but there's actually something about this pen. This is a screw pen. And there's something really nice about it. And that gets into another thing. It's execution. How you make something is so important. It's just not the idea, but also sometimes execution. And when you have this in your hand, it just really feels really good. And it's I really actually like it a lot. And if you would have told me I'm going to do a big screw and it's going to be a pen, I would have said, yeah, that's a stupid idea. Nobody would have. But yet I actually like it a lot. It really is a good idea. And here's another thing, another idea. We'll show this. Can you see this? Here's a robot pen. Oh, so how can you make that better, that pen? Nobody would have ever thought of this, but nobody, it's really nice. It's so clever. It's a fun mechanism. And when you can close it and put it in your pocket, but here is the same pen, and look at how much better this is. Using the time principle, making it go very slow. Like that. Who would have ever thought of that, to slow it up? Put a little spring in there to slow it up. And then look at this compared to this one. so much more magical. So that's a pen, and we'll talk about this pen in a little while. I'll show you this one. This is a pen. It's a 2-color pen. It's in a closed position, and then when you open it, it's red on one side and blue on the other side. But it has a little it's bears on it. So when it's in this position, you can see it says "I love bears," and there's 6 bears here. And when this was just a random design, so there's nothing here. There's only these bears that are split up. But I happened to notice one day, and we'll get to this a little later in the talk here. I happened to notice that when the bears are in this position, there are 6 of them. You could see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And when they're in this position, if you're looking at them not as bears, but just as objects, you can count actually 7. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I ended up making this, which we'll show you later. So here is the pen. Here is a stick that I made to experiment a little bit, because we'll show you that. So here you have, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 objects. If you look at them as objects, and if I turn it around, you'll see instead of objects, you can make them into these, into shapes. And then I have a magic trick. I have a geometrical vanish, which we'll go back to sharing the screen. Okay, we'll get to this trick here.
How many people do you see in the picture?
So there's 5 people. And 1 magically appeared. Now there's 6. Wow. Now, actually, this is something that my favorite book of Martin Gardner's is Mathematics, Magic, and Mystery. And he has a whole chapter on these geometrical vanishes. Now, when I did these first geometrical vanishes, I didn't even know about this book or Martin Gardner, but that's another principle that I started with. I love the whole category of these geometrical vanishes. And I've worked on, and the first one that I came across actually was before Martin's book, was the vanishing leprechauns, which is a very famous one. And I just got obsessed with that principle, and I used it in a lot of magic tricks and invented different puzzles with it. Now it's really fascinating, because when I did the digital version, that digital version that you saw on the right, I did that back 20 years ago, when the internet was just starting, and I would email that to people, or they would see it, and they were completely fooled by it. So, but yet if they would have seen the paper puzzle, they wouldn't have been, fooled by it. It's more like a puzzle, but it actually, it fooled a lot of people. So an interesting thing is when you take something old and then you update it with new technology, it can be more mysterious. So I never knew that, but it was kind of amazing. And I did the same with several other magic tricks, took them from the physical way and made them digital, and it makes them really much more amazing. So here's another one that I did. I think I was the first one to do a clear version. Here we have a very interesting 2-sided picture, because on this side we have 6 faces. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But if we turn the pieces around to the other side, turn the pieces around, on the other side, there's only 5 faces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So by making it clear, it made it much more interesting. So we'll get back to the pen that I just showed you. Here it is as a magic trick. Here we have 7 symbols, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And on the back we have 4 circles. Just think of any one of the 7, okay? Then I'll turn it around like this. You see 4 over here. You're thinking of 1 now, I just rub it like this. And look, now there's only 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The one that you're thinking of is gone. So this actually fooled people. I mean, it's basically a version of the princess card trick. Okay, here, this is the pen again. So it was from that, and when I realized it, and again, this stuff, when you have something like a pen collection, usually the stuff goes in your subconscious, and it's not like you're going to just take a pen and make it bigger. You might explore something like these were the first sketches I did on foam core, and before I even had the shapes, and to show that to explore the idea. Here's another version. This was on a little video interview with me. We have a car and a cat, but if we turn around on the back, we have a number 8, a man, and an arrow. But on the front, this side, it has the cat and the car. Here are the blocks that I showed at the beginning. We'll just show that again. Now, actually, this, okay, and here is a magic trick using it. The deck appears back in the box. So that was a trick that I invented in Fusion. So why do I show these? I show these. All of these inventions came from that one pen, because exploring the principle, taking that principle, and I didn't know, it was like at different times, they all have in common that basic principle is, and it was from just taking that one principle and exploring it, and taking the principle as far as I could take it. So the summary of my talk today was styling an invention. You don't have to be an inventor. Anybody can be an inventor if they just take something like a card trick or a puzzle. Take a puzzle that you like and just give it a theme, like I did with the Mr. Creepy chattering teeth trick. Now, you can start with a theme or explore a principle, is what I like to do with the mirrors. And I always recommend to somebody that they should have some self-imposed challenges, or, you know. Another thing is collecting things. Like if you're a mathematician, you know, it doesn't have to be objects. You don't have to collect pens or owls or something. You can collect problems. I collect ingenious solutions to problems, and I over the years I have 100 of them, and I'm actually working on for a long time now a book with really ingenious solutions to problems. If you're a mathematician, you can collect a certain type of problem. I like also paradoxes. I love collecting paradoxes because subconsciously they help you. You know, they give you insights later when you start to collect things like that. So that's the summary of my talk.
Thank you very much, Mark. Bob is still having difficulties with his connectivity, so he's asked me to step in as the host. We have Adam Atkinson saying, the Galileo Museum in Florence has a small number of paintings which work like your Harry Potter picture. How far back do pictures like that go, and is there a name for it? I didn't know what to search for. There was even one painting which had images, one viewed straight on, one when viewed from the left, and a third when viewed from the right.
Well, I think you're talking about anamorphic mirrors. My invention on the mirror thing was that half of it changes in the mirror and half is in reality. But anamorphic is something that Martin has written about. That's where usually it's a cylinder. Sometimes it's a cylinder mirror, and the image seems to be scrambled up, and then it comes into play when you look in the mirror. But there's been a lot of things. As far as I know, I didn't see that. I would love to see those pictures. But people have been playing around with mirrors for a real long time. And right now, actually, it was a few years ago where the Japanese mathematician Sugawara came up with these different these objects, these 3D objects that change in the mirror. And they took the world by the storm and the internet, and I'm sure everybody knows about it. And when I first saw it, it really blew me away. I mean, it was like, wow, you know, because I saw a video of it first and I couldn't even think about how it was done. It actually fooled me. And I love being fooled, and I love seeing something that I've worked on for so long. And that's one of those ideas that I would have never thought of that. And when you see things like that, it opens up a door in your mind. That's the thing about when you see ideas that you would have never thought of. Somehow it opens up a door in your mind a little bit and expands the way you look at things. And I just love all of his work, and I'm a big fan of that. So.
Yeah, so, and we just had a comment from Arthur with a link to the YouTube of Kokichi Sugahara's.
Yeah, fantastic.
Things,
yeah,
as you
his
mentioned.
stuff is amazing. Yeah, put it up there.
Yeah. Going back to Adam, he said, no, the painting was ridged, the one that he saw in the gallery. So
I'd love to see it. Oh, it's wonderful.
Three different images.
I don't claim, I don't care whether I was the first to invent it or not. It doesn't really matter, but I'm sure many things that I've come up with, people have thought before, because people have been thinking about this stuff for many years. So I'd love to see it, but I guess it goes back a real long time. So it's wonderful to see. It's wonderful to see other people doing similar work. I'm a big fan of, actually one of the people that that has also done a lot of things with mirrors is my friend Ivan Moskovich, who's now 94 years old. And we were hoping to he's attended the gathering for Gardner many times. And he and I have had a little rivalry with mirrors, a friendly rivalry. And he comes up with puzzles with mirrors. This is for 30 years or so. And I just love seeing what he does, and he likes to see what I do. So I love when people work in the same area and, it challenges you to keep inspired.
Right. Just continuing on that theme, we have a couple of other points, but so Arthur mentions, I think the ridged painting thing is known technically as lenticular printing, found by Googling a certain way. Anyway, the museum there is a Galileo Museum in Florence again.
Okay, great.
John Miller asks, he says, your interview with Eddie was awesome. Question, what about licensing? Was Rubik supportive of your variants?
Well, what happens is, yeah, because what happens is, like in the case of Rubik or any company, they have a license and they paid a lot of money for that license. So what they need is new ideas. They need to expand their line, and it's not possible for Rubik or anybody to come up with. So they have to go to outside inventors. So they put so with the Rubik's game, the company actually had the license, and they were actively looking for things that they can expand their line on. And so they get the approval, and they have the license. Same thing with Harry Potter with the mirror vision puzzle. Mattel had the license, and I didn't initially invent the Rubik's game. I did invent specifically for Rubik, hoping, trying to play tic-tac-toe and show them how they could do a game on there. But with the Harry Potter thing, I just had the puzzle. I had the mirror puzzle, and they said, well, Harry Potter would be a good license for it because there's a mirror in Harry Potter. So it made sense for them. So when you show companies many times now, especially nowadays, almost anything you show a company, they want to put a license on it. So you're showing the company that actually has the license for Disney or Harry Potter or Star Wars or whatever. So, and as an inventor, then you get a slightly reduced royalty. Normally you get 5% royalty if you license the idea, but then with the you split the royalty with the license, but presumably they're going to sell a lot more.
Skona Britton says, could you describe the mirror word game that you zoomed by?
That was called Think Twice, and it had clear letters on clear tiles. So it was like playing Scrabble, and then it also had white pieces. Yeah, there were these, the clear letters go on, and then you could use these, the white tiles were separate, and that's separated. So on the top here, you had a P, and on the other side, it could be a B or whatever. I don't know what letter it is. I'd have to look in the mirror. Oh, wet. You see over here, there's a P, but on the bottom, that letter is. So you'd use the white tiles to put on top of the black tiles to change words, and you use the mirror just to look to see what was underneath. The game was never made, and I haven't even looked at this game for, I forget how to play because it was a long time ago I came up with it.
We have someone who's asked, have you explored the magic applications of hybrid images?
Yeah, I know there's a few people that have done that. I love the hybrid images. I'm not really that good at making them. I have to get a little bit better at making them. If anybody has any tips or wants to teach me how to make them better, I mean, I played with it and I've tried to make them, but they're never as good. In fact, I did a Christmas card using a hybrid image, but I took one that existed and I adapted it to the card. So I love it when they first come out. So I always look for new principles, and that's what I try to do with the cards also. So when they first came out, when I first saw it that year, I decided to try to use it in there, but I love them. I'm just really not that, I can use Photoshop. I'm pretty good with Photoshop, but somehow the ones that I've made have not been as good as what I see from other people. My friend Gianni Sarconi in Genoa, the optical illusion designer, he's a master at making these things. But
can you just briefly define hybrid image for us?
Oh, the hybrid images are the ones where the famous one is the Einstein and the Marilyn Monroe. So when you look up close, you see Marilyn Monroe, but then when you look at it, looks like a blurred picture a little bit, but when you look up close, you can see clearly a picture of Marilyn Monroe. And then when you stand back 10 or 20 feet, you see Albert Einstein. So it's all printed, there's no lens or anything, and it's just they're just amazing. And I guess they well, people on the chat would know more about the history of them. And it wasn't that long ago that they were created.
Okay, Ali Muniz asks, how do you start showing companies your ideas, or is this something where it helps if you start in 1980?
Well, I mean, anybody can show companies their ideas, but what's happened is that we have less companies. Back in 1980s, there were many, many more companies. There were smaller companies, and also the world was less complex. So, like back in the 1980s, I was able to sit down and, like that exit game, I made the prototype using plastic or cardboard and sitting at my desk. But now things are much more complex. We have the internet, we have electronics, we have 3D printing. It's a whole different world. So, and but the main thing about showing companies is that we have less companies and they're bigger. So it's harder to see them. But if anybody has ideas they want to show companies, it's best to find somebody that's doing that. I don't really want to say like an agent, but somebody that'll help you, because a company, if you just write a big company like Mattel or Hasbro, they won't see your ideas, but I think they will recommend people that can field them for you. And they do that for two reasons. Number one, many ideas are similar, and the companies don't want to get sued. Everybody thinks that a company is going to rip them off. They show them their idea, they're so protective. But the fact is, if I took the best idea I'm working on right now, and if I went to Mattel with it and I said, here, do it for free, please do it, don't pay me anything, they wouldn't do it, because how good the idea is only like 10th on the list of their considerations. Is it going to fit into the line? How much is it going to cost? Can they package it right so people understand it? How can they market it? There's so many factors. So people are paranoid about their ideas, but the point is, it's really hard to get something that fits the criteria that they look for. And also ideas are like, many people have come up with similar ideas, which has just been proven that I didn't know about this beautiful illusion in Genoa, Italy, using something that I thought that I invented. So we just proved the point that many people come up with the same ideas.
So Rick Van Grohl asks, you have worked extensively with mirrors and vanishing puzzles. What mechanism / phenomenon are you working with right now?
Well, actually, in the last 2 years or so, I've been working with Alexa on magic, and and I work with Aaron Olson, who's a great magician and a programmer friend in Las Vegas. And the great thing about using the technology, see, with magic, many people, when I first did the electronic magic works, everybody says, well, nobody's going to be fooled by the trick because they think it's going to be the electronics or it's going to be the technology. But the magic principles, basic principles, transcend whatever technology comes along, and if you use it in intelligent ways. So when you're using a computer or Alexa or whatever to do magic, there are so many great principles, especially Martin Gardner writes about so many great mathematical principles that we've actually used in some of our tricks. And when we were actually working on the tricks themselves, it was fooling us, but the point is, you could never perform those tricks because the back end of the computer is doing so many calculations instantaneously. You'd have to be an idiot savant to be able to perform that trick, and most likely it'd be very boring, because by using the computer, you could do so much more. So it opens up a whole new field of magic, is using the principle, using really beautiful and complex principles of mathematics that you would never be able to perform because you'd have to just do too many calculations as a performer, and the trick would end up being boring.
And that actually segues into, if there's more to say about it, there's another question from AJ Rabbit. Where is technology going to take the world of magic?
Well, I did a lecture 2019 at the Magic Live conference in Las Vegas. And my presentation was about, will technology be able to replace a human magician? Will a robot or a hologram magician be able to do better magic than a real magician? Or could a hologram magician be more famous than the most famous human magician? And after working into technology a lot, I mean, obviously there's stuff, incredible things you could do with holograms and technology. My conclusion was that with big events, big stage magic and big events where there's many people in the audience, I do think that technology can overpower a real person. I mean, you can have a hologram of a character up there that seems human and transforms, you know, right before your eyes. So in the area of big magic and big spectacles, yes, it will probably be more amazing. But with close-up magic, it'll never come near, because the thing about just showing somebody a card, playing card, the Queen of Hearts, and rubbing it on their hand and having it change to the Ace of Spades is so powerful. And in fact, I think just the opposite happens, is with close-up magic. Close-up magic is going to get even more amazing, and I think it has, because people just assume technology is everything. So if you just take a simple card and rub a piece of paper, you rub it on their hand and it changes to something else. They say, how? Where's the technology? I don't understand. How's it? So close-up magic will get more amazing, and big magic will get more amazing with technology. So,
okay. What is the best way to buy your toys, Mark?
Oh, a lot of them are not on the internet now, are not on, so I guess on eBay, or just looking, you know, because many of them are not on the market. The way the cycle for products on the market, really, they come out for a couple of years or a year. You're lucky nowadays, it's the toy cycle. You have to really be lucky to have something that stays in the market for a couple of years, because so many ideas come out with all the time.
Okay. Eric Angelini asks, hi, Mark, was Louise Bourgeois interested in magic?
Yeah, she loved, well, she wasn't interested in magic. She liked when I did magic. In fact, I performed in one of her pieces, what was called She Lost It. I think that was, yeah, and it was back in 1991. I actually opened her performance piece. And for people who don't know, Louise Bourgeois was an artist. She died at the same month as Martin Gardner, May of 2010, I think it was. But Louise was 98, Martin was 95, and she was my teacher at the School of Visual Arts, and I ended up becoming her assistant for many years and her close friend. And she did like when I did magic, so she did like magic.
Dick Esterly asks, can you talk about the puzzle that makes any portrait from just a few pieces?
Well, that's the great Ken Knowlton, who I interviewed previously for the Gathering for Gardner. Ken, I've known Ken for many years. That's the Gigazo puzzle. People can look online or look at the interview I did with Ken for the Gathering for Gardner. And that uses, again, I like to start with principles. And I had known Ken since the first Gathering for Gardner. I had known him for 20 years, but it wasn't until maybe a lecture that he did at the New York Puzzle Party somewhere around 2008, he spoke there, and I thought, well, maybe we can make a product out of this. And I talked to Ken, and he said, yeah, well, let's try. You know, I thought, is it possible to make anybody's face, and could we make it into a puzzle or a product? And he agreed, and we started collaborating. So the basic idea, the Gigazo, the main Gigazo puzzle is 300 pieces that have shading, no picture on it, but yet those shaded pieces could be arranged to make anybody's face. And it's really amazing. And it's really Ken Knowlton's genius. I was just the one that realized there was possibly an opportunity or a principle to explore. And then the point is, how do you take that principle and make it practical, make it into something that's going to be fun, make it into something that's going to be cost effective, be able to put in a box, market it, all the other things that are required. You know, everybody has a good idea, but there's so many steps to get it to the actual market and to have it sell.
Mark is one of the founders of the Gathering for Gardner, so we owe him a lot. And he, for many years, was its president. So it's really great to have him first thing on the start here. And he honors us by speaking for us. So thanks again, Mark. And thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.